All right, for this explainer, we're going to try something a little different. We're going to strip away about 2,000 years of tradition, of art, of all our preconceived notions, and take a fresh look at one of history's most influential books, the Bible. But we're not going to look at it through the lens you might be used to. Our mission here is to re-examine the Bible, not as a religious text full of rules for the afterlife, but as a document of government. You might even call it a constitution for a kingdom. So let's just dive right in with the central and pretty disruptive claim from our source material, which draws heavily from the work of Dr. Miles Monroe. The argument is this: by reading the Bible primarily as a religious book, we've actually missed its main point entirely, that its primary subject isn't religion, it's government, specifically the establishment, the loss, and the reclamation of a kingdom. And trust me, that single shift in perspective, it changes absolutely everything. And this contrasts, well, it gets right to the heart of it. You see, the religious lens often focuses on escaping this world for the next one, like it's offering an escape pod. It tends to put the emphasis on demands placed on followers, things they have to do to prove their worthiness. But the kingdom framework? It's all about transforming this world right here, right now. It doesn't talk about what a follower must do, but about a government's responsibilities to its citizens and a citizen's role on Earth. It's less of an escape plan and more of a blueprint for terraforming. So here's our roadmap for decoding this constitution. First, we'll define what this government actually is. Then we'll explore its original mandate for humanity. After that, we'll dig into the rights and the authority of a citizen, what went wrong through the legal lens of treason, and finally, the legal path to reclaiming that lost citizenship. Yeah, our sources are really clear on this point. The message wasn't, hey, I've come to start a new religion. It was, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now that suggests the goal wasn't to create a bunch of new rituals for the afterlife, but to announce the reestablishment of a real, functional governing system that has an impact right here on Earth.
So we have to kind of redefine the word kingdom. We're not talking about a fairy tale with castles and moats. In this context, it's a political structure. It's the governing influence of a king over his territory. It's designed to impact that territory with his personal will, his culture, and his intent. And in a system like that, the king's word is the law. It's an absolute government.
And this means we kind of have to park our modern political baggage for a minute. See, in a democracy, power flows from the bottom up. We, the people, we lend our power to leaders, and we can take it back. But in a kingdom, power is inherent in the king, and it flows from the top down. Now, the source argues that the safety and success of a system like that relies entirely on the character of its king. If the king is good, the provision is good. If the king is righteous, the government is just.
Okay, let's tackle a concept that can be a bit of a trigger word: colonization.
The sources ask us to look at its original definition, to separate it from its often brutal historical application. To colonize simply means to extend a government's influence to new territory, to establish its culture there. So the mission being described here isn't a conquest for resources, but an expansion of heaven's culture, its values and its nature, right here onto the earth. And here's the critical difference. Human colonization has almost always been about extraction, taking resources from a colony to make the capital richer. This kingdom model is the exact opposite. It's about expansion, bringing the superior resources, the culture, and the wealth of the capital, heaven, to enrich and transform the colony, Earth. Think about how ancient Rome brought its laws, its roads, its aqueducts to its outposts. The goal wasn't just to rule, but to make the colony look and function just like the capital city. So if Earth is the territory that's supposed to be colonized with heaven's culture, what was humanity's original role in all this? Well, the text says, let them have dominion. And that single word has so often been used to justify exploitation. But our sources argue this is a complete misunderstanding of the term. The original mandate wasn't for religion, it was for rulership, a charge to act as responsible managers. When we actually look at the original Hebrew, the meaning becomes so much clearer. The words used for this mandate are abad, which means to serve or to work, and shamar, which means to guard and protect. Think of a gardener tending a garden. They serve it, they work it, and they protect it from harm. So dominion isn't a license to exploit the planet. It's a mandate to manage it, to serve it, and to protect it. You're more like a property manager or a vice-regent acting on the owner's behalf. And this leads us to one of the most practical principles in this entire framework, the huge difference between ownership and stewardship. In a kingdom, the king owns everything, the land, the resources, all of it. The citizens are simply stewards or managers who have been entrusted with the king's property.
And that distinction is absolutely crucial, because it completely changes who carries the burden of responsibility.
This has a direct application to our daily lives, especially when it comes to anxiety. I mean, think about it. If you own something, you carry all the responsibility, the maintenance, the risk. But if you're a steward, the pressure is on the true owner. It's like this. If your personal car breaks down, that's your problem, right? That's your stress. But if your company car breaks down, you just call the fleet manager and say, hey, your car's broken. The pressure just vanishes. The problem is still there, but the burden is not yours.
So how do you even operate within this system? Well, the sources point to this concept of keys. Jesus is quoted as saying, I will give you the keys of the kingdom. Now, these aren't physical objects. They're principles, fixed laws, or you could even call them access codes that govern how the kingdom works. The idea is that the kingdom operates on predictable principles, not on some arbitrary whim or emotion. I mean, a secure door doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares if you have the right key card. Use the principle, you get the result. Let's look at one of these keys, the principle of binding and loosing. In their original context, these are actually legal terms. To bind something means to forbid it, to prohibit it. To loose something means to permit it, to authorize it. So this frames a citizen as an ambassador who carries the legal authority to enforce the laws and the culture of their home government wherever they happen to be stationed. It's not a passive position, it's an active, authoritative one. So here's a really practical example. Let's say you're in a toxic work environment and it's full of gossip and slander. That culture is contrary to the kingdom's culture of peace and integrity. Well, you have the authority to bind it, not by preaching, but by simply refusing to participate. You forbid it from having access to you. And you can loose integrity by speaking truth and treating your coworkers with dignity. What you're doing is actively importing the climate of your home government into the climate of the office. You are an agent of change, not just a passive victim of your environment.
Now, this all sounds incredibly empowering, but clearly something went terribly wrong. I mean, Earth doesn't exactly look like a colony of heaven, does it? The sources reframe the biblical fall of man, not as a simple moral failure or a sin, but as the highest crime possible in a kingdom, high treason. You see, the core temptation wasn't about a piece of fruit. It was the idea that you will be like God, that you could establish your own independent government. And in this framework, that's a declaration of independence. It's rebellion. And this act of treason created a massive legal problem. This timeline lays it out pretty clearly. A contract was made, giving humanity dominion. That contract was then breached through an act of high treason. As a result, the territory fell under the influence of a rebel government, and humanity lost both its legal authority and its vital connection to the capital. The entire world system became an illegally occupied territory, which set the stage for illegal reclamation.
And this is where Jesus enters the story, not just as a religious figure, but as a legal one, acting on behalf of the kingdom. In any kingdom, the penalty for high treason is death. So that debt had to be paid to satisfy the law. But there was a catch, a clause in the original contract that created a major complication for the king. Let's just pause on this for a second, because this is the legal linchpin of the entire framework. The argument is that God is faithful to his own word, to his own contracts. He gave legal dominion over the earth to humans. Therefore, he could not just step in and take it back by force without violating his own contract. To restore the contract and legally reclaim the territory, a human had to be the one to do it and pay the price for treason. And this explains why Jesus had to enter the story as a human being.
So, if the legal record for treason has been cleared, how does an individual get reinstated into the kingdom? Well, the source material argues it's not about joining a club or a religion. It's about rejoining a government. The term born again, when you view it through this framework, isn't just an emotional experience. It is the legal process of naturalization. Think of it like walking into a passport office. You formally renounce your citizenship in the rebel system, the world's way of doing things, the whole system founded on independence from the king. And you then pledge your allegiance to the rightful king and his government. In that moment, you are legally naturalized. You are now a full citizen of the kingdom of heaven, living as an ambassador, an expatriate in a foreign land. This legal framework also explains Jesus' very first public command, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. The Greek word used here for repent is metanoia, which literally means to change your mind, to change the way you think. It's not primarily about feeling bad for what you've done. It's a command from the returning administration. It's saying, change your thinking. The rightful government is back. Stop thinking and acting like independent rebels and start thinking and acting like citizens. And this leaves us with a really provocative thought. The
The source material argues that what we are all really searching for isn't a religion to make us feel better. We're searching for power. And not power over other people, but power over our own circumstances, our environment, our destiny. We feel helpless, like victims of a system we can't control. The argument is that the human spirit is instinctively hunting for its lost political status. We're looking for the dominion we lost. We are looking for our crown.
So the question this framework leaves us with is a personal one. Does your approach to life feel more like being a member in a comfortable social club, just sort of passively waiting for a rescue from this world? Or does it look like the active life of a citizen of a powerful government, an ambassador on a critical assignment, who is here to actively transform the territory you occupy? The answer, this framework suggests, might just change everything.